This is great, though. I have to really thank everybody for joining us. It just the number of people that keep joining each week is increasing every week. So I'm assuming that we're doing a good job, but definitely would want feedback. And you can always just direct message me on LinkedIn or by email because we want to make these really awesome. I mean, super awesome, not just awesome. So welcome everybody to this month's Mastermind Mixer. It's all about the donor story and epic fundraising that we've been learning with Dr. James. Remember that anybody involved in your cause can attend these events. This is for MarketSmart customers and for e-course participants who have maybe are not MarketSmart customers. We have begun to invite friends of customers and people who are thinking about becoming customers. I know Sherry does that, so thank you for doing that, Sherry. So sometimes there might be somebody here who's actually not a customer or an e-course purchaser, but just know that anybody, if you're invited to this or you want to invite people in your organization and you're getting value out of this every month, just mark it on your calendar and feel free, or I should say, feel free to share the meeting link with others, but also mark it on your calendar and make it repeat, if you know what I mean, so that you're reminded of it every month and you can show up whenever you can. If you can't make it, that's okay. All right. If anybody's here who is not a MarketSmart customer, which I'm assuming there are a few, then you can always get a demo or learn more about our system to be the fundraiser that you always want it to be. That's what we help you with. I know that's a little vague. I don't want to give it away, but if you want to join a demo, it's very low pressure. We are not heavy-handed salespeople or manipulators. It's all about trying to discover if there's a fit and if there's a good value proposition that's worthwhile for you to consider investing in. So just go to our website. You could talk. It's usually you'll talk to Sherry or Paulo or maybe someone else. And looks like a lot of people are rolling in, little stragglers. It's okay. All right. So today we're going to be talking about using menus. Dr. James talked about this pretty sparingly in the course. And maybe Trisha, you even know, well, it's not even a section in the course. It's used, he talks about it throughout the course. And I do want to remind you that if you're having trouble getting through the course, you can always just take the fast track version of the course. That takes about 2.5 hours, which is about how much time I spend on TikTok every day, right? Or watching a movie, like a good movie, like Titanic will take you 2.5 hours, I guess. So you can learn everything you need to learn from Dr. James in about 2.5 hours if you do the fast track version. So I highly recommend that. But he talks about menus very sparingly, and it's not quite an afterthought, but I think that there should be a lot more emphasis on menus in the fundraising process. And I'll explain why as I go through this. But I want to first let you know the agenda for today is this is all about using menus to help donors advance their hero story. That's the key phrase that Dr. James came up with. I don't know, he talked about that guy Whitey or whatever from the from that some movie that said if there's one thing you ever want to remember about fundraising, just one thing, remember that fundraising is about helping a donor advance their hero story. That's the job. That's the role. Okay, but before we get into this, at MarketSmart, it's a tradition at every meeting. We always start off meetings, which we actually don't even call them meetings. We call them workshops. I hate the word meeting. Everybody yawns and goes to sleep at meetings, but we always start our team workshops with good news. So if you don't mind sharing, the good news is happy. It makes everybody excited and energetic. And if you've closed a big gift or landed a hard to get meeting, had an amazing discussion with a new donor prospect, or heard a tear-jerking donor story, please either just spout it out or raise your hand, or just go ahead and put it in the share, what is it called? The in the tool, the chat tool. And that includes our team. Like I know Sherry has lots of, if you want to type in a story of a customer or prospect that you spoke to, because by the way, we're doing what you do. It's just we're trying to sell to fundraisers. You're trying to raise money from donors. You know, it's kind of similar. So if you've got a good story, go ahead in there. My good news is that I'm getting my roof fixed before the winter comes, which this house is 15 years old now, and I'm realizing that is the mark of when everything starts to fall apart. So if you live in an old house and you know what I'm talking about, but I'm terrified that something's gonna, so let's see, we got one chat in here. I can't read it because of whatever, so I don't know. All right, maybe there is no good news. Nobody's raising hands either, so.
Karina met their goal for their annual appeal.
Awesome.
And Jill Nelson said she had a lovely chat with a donor who said, "You make me feel like I'm the only client you have." That's great, Jill.
That is nice. That is what we want them to feel, right? Special. Not everybody, though. We can't afford to talk to everybody.
And Elizabeth said they were able to get some food and other supplies through to Haiti through a partnership with their electrical company, which is in a historical period of upheaval.
Wow.
That's great, Elizabeth.
Good news. All right. Doing good. Thank you, everybody. All right, so let's talk about using menus. As I said, I think this is an often overlooked step in the fundraising process. I'm going to do just a quick presentation on this, and then we're going to break out into groups, and hopefully we can help you develop menus, or at least share with others what kind of menus you already have. The thing about menus is that they support our basic brain functionality. Okay, we are hardwired, us humans are hardwired to seek convenience. If you use Amazon, like I do, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, it's like Amazon is the most convenient thing ever. And if you want to know why they are so wildly successful, the single word convenience is it. The fact that it's convenient to order from Amazon for most of us, depending on where you live, I guess, is why it's just so powerful. Our brains, from the dawn of time, have been wired. It's a survival thing, because if we don't find the most convenient water or the most convenient food, we cease to exist. So it's been hardwired into our brains over millennia to seek convenience and build sort of electrical connections that help you realize what's the most convenient way to find a solution to a problem. So menus, like, I mean, of course, in the commercial realm, they figured this out, and they know, like, you're going to get the Happy Meal or this meal or that meal. And they even have a different menu during the morning time, maybe a different menu in the evening time. This is, and it works. It works. People appreciate menus. They help people move forward in their decision-making process. But it also works for high-dollar, consequential decisions. This, in case you can't see it, these are floor plans for homes, right? So I don't even know the builder. I found these online, but homes are not small. They're like major gifts. They cost a lot of money. It's a substantial investment that's going to be highly considered over a length of time. So, but builders use menus to help people decide on their options. I mean, unless you're going to custom design your house, which a few people do, although a lot of wealthy people, of course, your donors might have done that. But even so, if they met with an architect, I'm sure that they were provided options to help them with their decision making. So these are types of menus. Now, most of you are probably familiar with the type of menu that's all over your website, which is the Donate Now button. And then you get there and you get a menu of options, and folks will test different ways to make this more and more convenient so that people move forward and make the donation. But what about major gifts, including legacy gifts, by the way? So giving pyramids, if you will, are probably the most familiar of the major gift type of menu. And it even is interesting for this one, they just plain say that donors making a gift of over $100,000 have an opportunity to name. So there's sort of a side item going on there. There is some new research, and I don't want to get down a rabbit hole about naming opportunities. I mean, they're good, but that shouldn't be they're fleeting, I guess is what I should say. Because once the naming opportunities are gone, they're gone. Maybe you can invent some new ones, but what I'm going to encourage you to do is focus on naming opportunities that are, the menu options that are more program oriented and related to interests among your donors. So where this applies, though, is, and we at MarketSmart will begin the process of providing a menu early when we're trying to help our customers understand the original identity of their donors. So in fact, let me back up just for a second. For those of you who haven't gotten too far in the course, these are Dr. James's words, where he talks about the advancement or helping the donor advance their hero story. He looks at the hero arc in any movie or play, and it always works generally in this way, unless if it's a good movie, it works in this way. Like I was just thinking about Top Gun. You know, Top Gun recently, the wildly popular movie, well, because it followed in this fashion, where you understand the donor's original identity. That's their life story, their people, or their values. Then when the timing is right, you ask them to consider a challenge. That's their opportunity to make a choice. Are they going to go forward or not? And if they do go forward and they win, and I'm thinking of like Luke Skywalker, he blows up the Death Star in the first Star Wars movie. So he gained a victory. He realized the best version of himself. And then there's the end of the movie, for if those who've seen Star Wars, the 4th episode, New Hope, is that then at the very end, and it was fleeting in the movie, but Princess Leia puts the gold medallions on their necks, and they have the enhanced identity. That's also what Dr. James, many called the hero's return. Right? So that's sort of the afterglow of the victory. So how this fits, and in the course, it's usually described in a circular fashion, because once someone gains their victory through giving, and you've helped them with enhancing their identity, there's a period where you might help them recount their original identity again 6 months later, a year, 2 years later, and ask them to consider a new challenge. And between that stage, of course, there's stewardship needs to occur, or you won't get that chance to give them another opportunity to give again. They'll recoil, they'll leave. So just getting it, making sure everybody understands, if you put it in like movie terms, the original identity is the backstory. And we often think of that in fundraising as the period where we're doing identification, prospect identification or qualification. The setting is usually where we're doing some cultivation and learning about the donor, building a relationship, building deeper trust, commonality, understanding their needs and what they're interested in. And then there's the inciting incident. That's like where Luke was asked to go on a journey with Obi-Wan Kenobi to fight the dark forces, the dark side, and Darth Vader. And that is the solicitation. And then the climax, as I said, like blowing up the Death Star, that's where you gain a victory and feel the donor feels a sense of recognition. And then the resolution where you have that afterglow, and then you've got that's really stewardship. It happens there in that period, and we want to go back to the beginning. So for those of you who have studied a lot of this, I hope that's not too repetitive. I'll just add some meat on the bones here, is that this is the beginning of the story is where you're going to discover their motivations. Dr. James puts it in 3 categories. You want to learn about their life story and the intersection of their life story and your cause. If it's a college, for instance, it's like, you know, bring them back to the beginning when they first got accepted, or their years. Or if it's a hospital, you know, was there a doctor who helped you, or a nurse, or somebody, and that inspired them to care. You want to find out that backstory and that connection that is potentially motivating the gift. Then you want to gain alignment. And this is where you're going to want to, this is the area where we really want to talk about menus mostly. This is where you're going to look at programs and organizational capabilities and try and help the donor find a fit and a match, something that they want to support. Then when we get to the ask, the solicitation, Dr. James recommends that you always reflect their motivations and their interests in the ask, and the ask should be specific, for a specific gift, at a specific time, for a specific purpose that's related to their original identity and is fair. I'm assuming everybody has giving policies and such. It needs to provide value to the beneficiaries, the organization, and the donor by providing a victory that will enhance their identity. If this all works and it's fair, that's a good thing. Now, again, mostly the offers of menus are going to happen in this cultivation stage where you're kind of testing offers. You're testing to see what really appeals to them. What might they want to fund, so to speak? So now I'm going to go to some examples. This one, and as I'm looking at it now, I'm like, okay, because we have vegetarians on our staff, and I'm probably sure here. So sorry if I've offended the vegetarians. It just dawned on me. But the Red Bull Theater, I think they're in New York. You know, they created this menu that's kind of cute. And there's one here. I know it's kind of small, so I made it bigger. The slow cooker. You know, this gets a new play started. And if you give 5,000, you can actually produce the short new play festival. Just an interesting way to do. Now they do this, they use this menu, they put it down at a dinner for major donor prospects, you know? So there's an event, they use the menu, it's a little creative and kind of cute, but it gets people thinking about options, right? Now, what this is really about, and I'm not saying that you should go read this book, it is a good book, and it's actually fairly quick read, but I just love the title, Asking About Asking. It's interesting that you don't really have to do, first of all, I'm not fond of ambush asks. I mean, a donor should never be ambushed and surprised about that you're soliciting them. But if you ask them about asking them all throughout the cultivation process, and you provide menus that help make thinking about giving convenient, then you may not even have to do the high wire act of the solicitation, you know, that high pressure, high wire act after all, because then it just becomes a collaboration where it becomes the next step. And they may even come forward and say, okay, am I ready? Are we done? Should I take out my checkbook? What's the next step? And that happens a lot if you've gone through the process, and especially if you've used menus to help with asking about asking. Now, for those of you who are MarketSmart clients, you probably know, I don't know if anyone from the Girl Scouts is here today, but if any of you are using us and seen the surveys that we developed, 11 years ago with Dr. James, is that we ask about how people would consider or be likely to consider giving. And this is usually focused on either cash or assets. Cash or assets. Of course, we're looking for assets. We would prefer asset giving because those are bigger gifts. Once we collect that data, then the automated cultivation emails system will drive people to different pages on the website that they selected they might have interest in. I like the way I'm bringing up University of Texas because they've been doing a really good job with, and they, by the way, have so many offers, but we were able to help them and they were helping themselves, frankly, to determine that these are the 4 biggest priorities. And this came out of their capital campaign. These are the 4 big, and 2 of them actually mishmash a bit together. So then on their web pages that of course we're providing, you can see the buckets here. And of course the automated emails are driving them. But this is early in the process. This is for cultivation. What I'd like to focus on is, okay, not how MarketSmart warms donors up and not how we begin to get to know them and show them that we know them, but rather, what are you going to do once you have outreach ready leads from our system and when you're finally meeting with people? So one way to start the process, and I'm going to give you a variety of ideas here, is to break it down into, hold on, are we talking about asset gifts, which could lower your capital gains taxes? Or are we looking at estate gifts? Are we looking at multi-year pledges or a virtual endowment, or is there something else, right? Of course, you notice that I don't have cash on that list. If you're meeting with somebody, hopefully you're not soliciting a $50 donation, you know? So the bottom line here is that when you're involving yourself with someone more deeply and building that relationship, building trust, they will appreciate if you share a menu that will help them think about these conversations about sharing their wealth. It'll make it easier for you. It'll make it easier for them. And that's why we're all here today. So the bottom line of that, though, is that you've got to have options to offer. You've got to have something to put on your menu. And it is interesting to me, unless there's a capital campaign going on, I find that a lot of organizations have not actually developed this. I'm going to take a little hit at leaders. If you are a leader, forgive me, I'm going to take a swat at you because I'm a leader. I'm a CEO. It is the CEO's responsibility to make sure that funding mechanisms for an institution or a company are architected and engineered. I know that was just a long, wonky sentence, but I learned this from my CEO coach. I actually have a CEO coach, learned this a long time ago. It is our job to architect, leadership's job to architect and engineer options for donors, or as I've done for our company, our customers to buy. So we have a menu. It makes things easier. If you want to scale, you've got to have those options. So what we're going to do today, as in a group activity, we're going to break up into a handful each. We're gonna spend a good 20 minutes today. I hope that's enough time. In the past, we haven't been affording everybody enough time in these groups, so hopefully it's not too much time. We want you to very quickly introduce yourself and your organization. Please be brief about that so there's more time to talk about developing a menu. Then if you've got giving options, especially, and we all know that there's assets or cash and then breaking down of the types of assets. So let's not talk about those, and they happen later in the process anyway. When you're cultivating a relationship, you generally want your options to be giving opportunities that are related to your cause. You know, what can they give to support? Is it a scholarship? Is it funding a theater production, things like this. They should be programs, if you will. Okay, so think in terms of programs, not in terms of how they can give or get asset options. If you don't have program options, if you will, then that's where the Mastermind team, that's where I'm hopeful that others will pick up for you by asking questions. Help be a mastermind brain to think about this and poke and prod about the cause and see what kind of options might be available for your major donors to fund. Okay, so then we're going to come back. I'm going to ask you what happened, and hopefully we get a whole bunch of interesting ideas and makes you think. But it's all for the purpose of making this easier for your donors. So with that, we can do the, fade away, Tricia, and put us in groups, please.
Once again, I had the best group.
All right, once again, I had the best group.
I said it before you got in here.
Oh, really? Well, I always say that actually every single time. But I don't think everybody's back yet. So, yeah, it's good to see everybody's faces. I love this view where I can see everybody. We had a very lively conversation. So I'll just point out a couple things and then hopefully others, and feel free to use the chat tool too. But what we stumbled on was when leadership decides what options, when leadership decides what menu options they want to push, that sometimes are real big yawners for the donors. The donors are like, yeah, this doesn't resonate whatsoever. It's not either or, it's neither. Yeah, I'm not interested anymore. You're not listening to me. And Cecilia, thank you, was talking about our system in any system, that listening to the donors, especially through a survey or something like that, to begin the process of developing your menu, rather than like, I think it was Elizabeth that was saying, wow, we had leadership one time at an organization who was like, yes, we want them to support government affairs. It's like, yawn. Nobody wants to support that, at least at that organization. So anyway, I'll shut up and did anybody have any other ideas that were lively, interesting? I have a couple others, but I don't want to take up all the oxygen. Feel free to raise your hand or just yell.
Just about what you just said about government affairs. Sometimes it's the way you word it too. Like, would somebody like to influence whatever it is that makes the world better? Yeah, you do that through government affairs, but it's what you're accomplishing that is more interesting.
I think that's a great point, Jill, because you're talking about the benefit and the value proposition, not the feature. So government affairs is kind of a feature, but what's the benefit? Especially for advocacy oriented groups, I could see that government affairs is something they might want to support, but if you call it government affairs, there's no sizzle on that steak. Anybody else have any good menu ideas they came across, or did anybody get stumped and not have any menu options and they just were like, I got nothing? Because we can help you. No, everybody had menu ideas. What was the other thing I learned? Cecilia also had an interesting idea where she was like, well, if I'm going on vacation, I wonder if I could put it in my signature, like to see our menu ideas, like while I'm away. This is kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah, and our other point in our discussion group that I've found being a MarketSmart survey user is we are still grappling with listening to those menu option items. So obviously I in the plan giving department follow up with that question, but there's other questions that we're asking about vis-a-vis the menu. So if somebody's interested in water or orphan children, feeding programs, housing, etc., we're not really capitalizing on sending it because it involves sending it to another department. And what they're kind of like, well, what do we do with this? We've got this list. How do we You know what I mean? So we have to be prepared to listen and then act upon the information they're giving us.
And interestingly, Elizabeth works at Food for the Poor, had been in major gifts for decades, I want to say. And that's true, right, Elizabeth? And then now you just recently moved into plan giving. So you've seen it in all categories, but Food for the Poor is interesting because they actually have a catalog of options. There's the gift catalog.
Yeah.
Some of them are major gifts, right?
Yeah, they go up to doing a whole house to, $10 to plant a fruit tree.
Right.
And everything in between. So this is one of our most successful appeals is our Christmas catalog. Yeah.
Now I'll share with everybody that years ago when it wasn't when we were first starting to work with Food for the Poor, but years ago, we were getting so much response for giving opportunities through our system, but we were getting ahead of the program staff. So programs could not fulfill the menus options. It's like they ran out of salad, or they ran out of the fish item. There wasn't enough people to build houses, but there were more wealthy people that had money and wanted to. There were people I remember that wanted to build whole communities. They were like, well, let me build 24 houses in Haiti, something like that. And you have to slow down and say, well, hold on, we can't offer that because we don't have the program staff. We can't do it. But now years later, because they knew that wealthy people would fund that, now they've staffed up for it. I see. Go ahead, Jill, you're on mute. Oh, no, okay. Looked like you were talking.
Just saying, wow, that's really cool story. That's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so let's see, how much time? We only have a few more minutes left. Oh, Trisha, yes?
Greg, Laura was asking how many options are good to offer? So up front versus after you've listened to an individual donor. Okay,
so it's funny, she asked this in our group and I said, it depends. And then we got sent back in here. So I didn't get to say, okay, so generally speaking, first, overall, a menu has got to be simple. If it makes people think too long, that's a problem, right? It also should connect with their original identity. So you got to show them that you know them. If they filled out a survey and they said that they were interested, for instance, in supporting underprivileged youth with scholarships and education, I'm just making up something, right? Show them a menu of options related to that. But don't show them 50 other options that are irrelevant or what that causes friction. So there's not an exact number because there could be 11 options in that one category and you might want to walk them through those. But it's unlikely, it's usually more likely that there should just be a handful of options and you should try and keep it as simple as possible. Like that one I showed you all with University of Texas, they kind of had 4 buckets, but 2 of them actually fit into 1 bucket. So then it ended up being 3, and that's real nice and tight. But think about the University of Texas, like that's a big institution. They got more options than what we just showed, but that's actually what came out of their campaign is those are the 3 biggest options that they found from their studies. And those are big buckets that lead to smaller giving options. Hope that makes sense. It's a process. And in Dr. James's study course, he talks about it going in, what do you call the, it's like you zero in on it and it's an ever diminishing bullseye, if you will. So you start wide with maybe 3 big options, then you zero in a little more and maybe there's sub options, and then you get smaller in your final giving proposal, for instance, where it's, then those options are about the assets they told you that they wanted to give, the timing that they wanted to give it, and you're getting into little detailed options. I hope that makes sense.
Greg, quick question. We have not yet had our microsite retooled. So I think that's in progress. Is the idea that it would look like the University of Texas site?
Your customer success person, who's probably here, hopefully, is
Cheryl.
Oh, Cheryl's not here today. Okay,
Nope.
So she should be asking you questions about your menu options, so that when we retool the site pages, we have those there.
Okay. I don't think we've talked about it that specifically yet.
Okay, I'll make a note, or yeah.
I think we have a meeting coming up, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we are pushing our customers gently to consider those and make those presentable to your supporters in the microsites that we develop for you. Not all of them do. I mean, that one with Girl Scouts, honestly, they didn't yet, but we're going to be nudging our customers to do that. Yep. So we're at the top of the hour. We only have about 1 minute left.
I got a quick one for you, Greg. I'm so sorry. Jessica had actually brought this up in our group, which was a great question. She wanted to know if there were any other suggestions on how to market giving menus to major donors. And she actually does love the gift catalog from Food for the Poor.
Well, in general, the idea is to do it face to face. And you do it after you feel very confident that you've really understood their original identity. So I guess what I'm going to say is this. The way to get the biggest gifts is to not, as my mentor taught me in sales years and years ago, he used to have a phrase. He said, you never want to spill your candy in the lobby. Anyone heard that phrase before? Maybe not. In other words, you don't want to give that out too soon. You spill the candy in the lobby, then everybody coming off the elevator and everything is grabbing the candy. No. You want to spill your candy when you're face to face with the customer, a donor, or prospect. So what I recommend is that you first meet and build trust. Ask them about them and their original identity, their people, their values, their life story, and their connection. Once that's done, and you generally shouldn't skip steps, once that's done and they feel comfortable with you, then you should invite them to look at options with you, but you should do it under the guise, and this gets technical, but this is what the research proves works, is your first offer is actually yourself. Let me explain. I know we're going over time, but this is important. Your first major offer or menu item is, Ms. Wilson, it's been great getting to know you and hearing about that story and everything. I want to let you know that I'm a philanthropic advisor here at XYZ organization. I can only work with so many people at a time. I'm provided to donors who are seriously considering making serious consequential impact, but I can't work with everybody. And there are a handful of us, maybe you're the only one, but there's others. So you don't have to work with me, but I'm inviting you to consider working with me as your philanthropic guide, your facilitator, your advisor. And if you'd opt in for that, then I'll take what you tell me about your interests and I'll go to work for you. Dr. James talks about the power of the pause in his research and how powerful it is. So you almost need to go away. The gifts get bigger when you go away and you work on options for them. Then you come back but what I'm saying is that first option you provide is, do you want to work with me as your counselor, your guide, your advisor, or would you like to meet with somebody else? It's up to you. No pressure. Does this make sense? I hope. Yeah. Because once they opt in, it's kind of like when you choose to get a real estate agent, a lawyer, a doctor, right? This is who you are. You are that important. In fact, you're more important than any of those people. I don't think, now I'm going to go on a rant. I don't think fundraisers get the credit they deserve for what they do for humanity, but also the donors. Because I've seen major donors cry tears of joy having had a relationship with a gift officer who helped them find meaning in their life because they were able to learn how to share their wealth for the good of others. Lawyers, they do not cry tears of joy when lawyers help them with whatever they help them with. No offense to lawyers, sorry.
Are you sure?
But I'm here, I am your biggest fan because I know what you're doing. You're there helping these people find purpose and meaning in a way. Now that Christmas is coming, we have a Christmas story, you know, comes out every year, or Christmas, what's it with Scrooge, right? And Scrooge was a jerk, and then he became awesome and charitable and philanthropic. Well, that didn't happen by accident. Technically, it happened through a guide. And you all have that power. It's immense, and I applaud it. So anyway, I want you to take the position of that guide, and your first opportunity or option is to ask people if they want you to help them with that, or would you be happy to pass them on to somebody else and bring others into the mix? Totally got on my soapbox. Thank you all for staying over 4 minutes extra. We'll see you in a month. I know it's December, so hopefully folks show up, but please invite your friends if you got some value out of this, and feel free to poke me privately and tell me it sucked if you want. And then I'll try and figure out how to improve it.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks, Greg.
Bye.
Bye.